During our broadcast last night, an alert came in that there was a possible active shooter on the University of Colorado Boulder campus. Now, typically, we would start gathering information, look for live shots, get ready to break in with the news. Instead, we paused because there had already been 5 college shooting hoaxes that day. And sure enough, UC Boulder's was the 6th. The report of shots fired at the library on Boulder's campus was, quote, a potential swatting incident. There was no threat. There was no shooter. Just someone calling in a fake report of shots fired, which triggered law enforcement to respond in full force. That incident is part of a growing trend, one that is unnerving students and parents alike. Since last Thursday, there have been at least 13 active shooter hoaxes on campuses across the country. The University of Villanova was targeted twice in the span of 4 days. Both incidents were pranks. But that didn't make them any less terrifying. Students locked themselves in bathrooms and barricaded their doors to their classrooms. They thought there really was a shooter roaming the halls.
And it makes me very angry that somebody would pull a hoax like this. I don't understand what the reasoning would be, why somebody would want to do this, why they would cause this much panic.
Very upsetting to me. I think whosoever, did this is very irresponsible and should be held accountable.
Now, Delaware's county district attorney plans to find the person or people who targeted Villanova and do just that. DA Jack Stolzheimer will join me in just a moment. But in the meantime, we have former Secret Service agent and school safety expert Michael Matranga on with us. Michael, do we think these copycat swatting incidents are connected? Is it just a copycat, people seeing it being done elsewhere and trying it someplace else? This is a very unusual spate of these hoaxes to be called in at the beginning of the school year.
Well, I don't think it's unusual at all. If you look at last year, we had this same influx of these hoaxed bomb threats and active shooter threats occur all the way into the month of October in the hundreds. If you look at recent data into 2023 and 24 and 25, there's been over 700 every year on educational campuses throughout the United States at the tune of over $83 million in taxpayer funds to increase security posture. That's the economic impact that nobody's really looking at. And, the majority of these things are usually generated overseas, and they're concealed by voice over IP phones or, spoofing. This is going to continue to be a problem until we can identify the sources. I would just tell people, do not get complacent. Don't let your guard down, because one day it might not be a hoax. And so respond accordingly. And those people that are involved in these incidents should be very situationally aware of their surroundings.
Yeah, schools have been the sites of some of the most deadly mass shootings in America. These swatting calls seem to be capitalizing on that history and that fear.
Yeah, I think that this is what these individuals and these groups that participate in this particular type of behavior, this is what they want. In some ways, I think that it's, purely to strike fear into the hearts of Americans and our most precious assets, which are our kids. And then in other ways, the tactical side of me thinks that this is a way for them to gauge our response and to see how we're going to respond, so that in the event there is an actual planned or coordinated attack, they will know how to go about doing that.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the motive possibly could be. Is it just to make people afraid? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any gain to anybody.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's to instill fear into the American people. We can't just continue to live in a state of fear. We must increase our situational awareness as individuals, as leadership on, whether it be K-12 or university campuses throughout the United States. We have to look at preventative and proactive means to thwart violence in any way on any college campus or even K-12 campus. And then we have to get really good at our response. And, the one good thing, if there is a good thing, is that a lot of these schools have had a lot of practice over the last week.
Yeah.
If there's one thing to pull away from it.
The FBI, as you pointed out, believed a lot of these swatting calls have come from overseas. part of the problem here is technology has evolved so much. These calls are very, very difficult to trace.
They are. They're very difficult to trace. I mean, this has been a continuing problem for the last 2 decades in federal law enforcement. When I was involved with the Secret Service, we've just seen an influx of this particular type of behavior over the last couple of years. And so, one of the things that my team and I have identified is that nobody's really tracking this, and no one is, more importantly, no one is pushing it back out to the field once they've determined that something is a hoax, whether it be through, IP, voice over IP, or email, or, phone communications. Once it is identified as a hoax, there's no clearinghouse or repository where people can revert back to once they receive, this information to say, okay, we verified that this is a hoax. We don't need to respond appropriately or increase our security posture. That's what our team is working on right now, is creating that for the K-12 and university space.
Well, in most of these cases, the universities responded, as if it were really happening. Schools were locked down. In many cases, it was freshman orientation week. The freshmen were there with their parents. Doors were barricaded. Alerts went out to, hide, run, fight. And most chilling, many of these phone calls, these swatting phone calls to these colleges, had the sound of gunfire in the background.
Yeah, again, it's to instill fear into the American people. I would be willing to bet, and not just based on my opinions, but based upon statistical facts, is that the majority of these hoaxes are created overseas to instill fear into the American people. Because simply put, people from other parts of the world don't like the freedoms that we have here in the United States, and whatever they can do to disrupt our day-to-day life, that's what they're going to do. And so I would tell the American people to remain vigilant, practice the OODA loop. That's observe, orient, decide, and act. Stay constantly in that decision-making process. Keep your head up, get off your phone, and be aware of your surroundings, whether it be on campus or walking to your car or, to a movie theater.
Is there any danger that, given all these false alarms, that people won't take real calls of an active shooter in the future as seriously?
Yes, I believe that is one of the reasons why these people are doing this in such great volume, is that so that we do become complacent. So when there is an attack, we will have been caught off guard. And so what I would encourage the students and the faculty and the responders on these educational campuses to do is don't let your guard down. It doesn't matter if it happens once or it happens 100 times. Treat every single incident as if it were the real deal until you know that it is not.
Yeah, very, very unsettling start to the school year for tens of thousands of college students across the country and their families, many of whom were still on the campus, as I said, because of freshman orientation week, when all these active shooter false alarms and false calls went out. Michael Matranga, I really appreciate your expertise. Thanks so much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.